if companies really don't start taking AI seriously in the next 3 to 5 years, you got to look all these startups that are they're all going to take advantage of AI, and
Yeah,
what they're going to be able to do is move so much faster than some of the already pre-established companies that are out there. They're going to start playing catch up really quick.
yeah,
And if they don't, if some of these more established companies really don't start the AI transformation, they're going to be overtaken by startups eventually,
definitely.
because there is a lot of investment going on in AI right now, like a
100%.
lot.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow IT podcast. Your host here, Alessandro Cutri, joined today by Chris Pollitzer. I would say the man who wears many hats. But we'll be diving into
Accurate.
his story, him really co-founding Noble Team, a little bit about their journey, and some interesting insights into the marketing sphere. So make sure to definitely stick around. But without further ado, Chris, I'll just pass it on over to you. If you don't mind just introducing yourself and telling a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today.
So it's been a wild ride. My private sector life started in 2018 after being in the military for 20 years. I spent 15 years in special operations, and then retired in October 31st, 2018. I did some government contracting for about a year or two to
Mhm.
really kind of figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up.
Yeah.
And then I got my first private sector job in 2020, right at the start of COVID. I was brought in as a senior marketing manager for a deli here in Florida, 30 unit deli. COVID took that down to 20 unit.
Hmm.
But during the process, I was able to help digitize their online ordering and some of the other stuff, and added some pretty significant revenue back into the operation that was being pulled because of the COVID effect. Was it enough to counterbalance everything? No, but it was enough to keep everything going and afloat. So and I bounced around looking at a couple of different industries, and then I landed in the investment world, and that's where
Yeah.
I met my business partner now. And from there, we both just got tired of working uh, for people that we didn't want to work for anymore,
Hmm.
and decided that we were going to go out on our own and build something.
Yeah.
And we built a team around an idea. And we took that idea to market, and that kind of brings us to where I'm at today. I don't know if you want me to stop there. And,
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I'm curious because, being 20 years in the special ops and going and transition, I almost want to talk a little bit about that. How
oh
was
yeah.
that transition for you? Like going from, 20 years and then starting to move into the private sector more. What was that like?
So getting out of the military was probably one of the scariest things I think I've ever done. I
Mhm.
joined when I was 17 years old,
Yeah.
and I did it all the way till I was 37.
Hmm.
Right. So 20 years of military indoctrination. They teach you a different acumen. They teach you a different way to kind of live your life. They teach you different mindsets about teams and organizations and efficiencies. And so getting out was scary because you just don't really know what to expect, right?
Yeah.
And as I began to start navigating that, it became very hard.
Mhm.
Trying to like, I had a whole lot of experience, but I wasn't getting a whole lot of phone calls with these resumes that the Army taught me how to write in their 1 week of, hey, this is how you become a civilian again.
Hmm.
So I had to do a lot of trial and error, and through that, I found that I wasn't speaking the right language, and so I started down a certification path. Specifically, started with HubSpot actually,
Hmm.
in the HubSpot Academy, and started listening to what they were saying inside of the HubSpot Academy, and then correlating it to what I did in the military. So what I did in the military is essentially marketing, PR, and strategic communications all kind of wrapped into one nutshell, but with a very different focus, more towards foreign policy advancement.
Yeah.
So that was our ROI. So not necessarily driving revenue, but driving foreign policy.
Interesting. Yeah, 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 that it's funny how there's always parallels in one way,
Yeah.
shape, or form, or in another. So yeah,
But of
but
course, the DoD, they speak a completely different language, and the business world speaks a completely different language. So I had to figure out how to translate everything I knew how to do. And the minute that I
Yeah.
did that, the phone didn't stop ringing. So
Yeah. So I just want to dive a little bit into, Noble Team and kind of what you've built yourself. Like, why don't you tell the audience just a little bit about, that, value proposition really that you bring as an organization, what you guys are really looking to build.
So we just went through a rebrand in the last like month. So I've got our new value proposition. I haven't quite memorized it yet. So I'm just going to be upfront and honest with everybody.
Yeah,
So I'm
that's
going to read
fine.
it.
That's fine. Yeah.
So I'm going to read it. We provide companies with limited AI capabilities and on-ramp to adopt AI through scalable, executable strategy designed for minimally disruptive organizational change and complete adoption of AI-driven culture. On-ramping to AI enables your business to improve efficiency, make data-driven decisions, and seize opportunities while the market is still ripe for AI-free advantage. And that's the value that we bring. We help companies really learn about AI, learn how you need to restructure your organization for AI,
Interesting.
uh, and not just for AI, but also to become data driven, right?
Yeah.
And data aggregation, and all of that kind of comes into a piece. So we've developed a business architecture that's kind of a roadmap for how an organization can get to this point. And it's kind of like I said, it is a roadmap for how we teach organizations. And it's also a way for us to do assessments of organizations and figure out where they're at in that transition so we can meet them where they're at. So if somebody's already started the adoption process, we might not necessarily need to start with like AI literacy and understanding that most companies that haven't touched AI yet need.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And so on that itself, like what are some of the things that, you know, the typical challenge that you face or that you see, firms face before you engage them, right? And kind of how do you help them with those, implementing AI and what type of transformation can they really see from that?
So, what we're running into, one, there is a large misunderstanding about what AI is.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of new AI terms that have come out recently. People are starting to hear generative AI. People are starting to hear large language models. People are starting to hear natural language progression, and
Hmm.
a lot of them don't know what it means. They don't know how it plugs into their business, and that's kind of where the education piece starts with us is really getting the leadership in businesses comfortable with what AI is and what it can actually do for their organization. And like it's just sorry, did that answer the question?
Yeah. So no, yeah, 100%. And I think just to add on top of that, my following was going to be like what type of impact is that? Like when you're able to, place AI and actually, have them implement it, what type of impact are you seeing across these companies?
So we're in the process of doing implementation now. So we haven't seen, we're a startup, so we haven't gotten through so our transformation process, depending on where these companies are at, it can take anywhere from a year to 3 years, right? Depending on the
Yeah,
size of the company. This
definitely.
is nothing that we're trying to shove down their throats, right? Because there's companies out there and there's plenty of research. I can point you to MIT articles and Harvard articles and Columbia articles, all talking about transformation and all talking about how companies that try to adopt automation and AI without a full-blown strategy that is tied to their actual business objectives,
Yeah.
they end up failing and they end up hating AI because it wasn't adopted throughout the organization the way it needed to be. It wasn't implemented into the organization the way that it needed to be.
Yeah.
And that's largely what we were figuring out. Like the first 10 months of Noble Team was we were in the dental industry with an actual AI tool.
Hmm.
And during our conversations with dentists and other people, we started to notice that they said, "Hey, this looks extremely valuable. We just don't know how. We don't know how to use this, and we're not organizationally set up to actually run like this."
Yeah.
And that's what led us to really kind of what's going on in the world right now, and it's just companies aren't ready for this. They don't understand it, and they need to be taught and they need to be guided. So I've built a team of extreme experts from AI to senior developers that are next level. Like I have one of my senior developers. He's one of those guys that taught himself trigonometry at like 10 years old so he could code video games.
Yeah.
So, having in building, building the right team, I think has been, pivotal for us to be able to start landing clients and start beginning our process. So,
Yeah, yeah, and that's the name of the game, right? When it comes to entrepreneurship, is knowing when to when to pivot and when to be able to find those opportunities within the market, right? Because that's all it is, always capitalizing on trends, capitalizing on opportunities. So it's exciting stuff what you guys are doing. I definitely think you're positioning yourself in the right way in that sense. So when it comes to like, opportunities and it comes to trends, right? Like marketing is, you obviously have quite the extensive background in marketing and you're still you're by trait seems like you're a marketer, right? So what are some of the trends that you're seeing right now within the marketing space that's kind of standing out to you?
in terms of like the biggest trend in marketing right now, and I think we've all seen it. It's been all over LinkedIn. It's been all over the media, right? And it's Chat GPT or the other, generative AI things, and how those are actually both benefiting and also not benefiting organizations.
Yeah.
And so the marketers that are adopting it and they're learning how to use it, and they're actually learning how to use it to create good, solid content, and not there's plenty of websites that you can go to now that have blogs on them, and you can obviously tell that there was no prompting done, there was no context provided,
Yeah.
right? And there was no like human written. It was just somebody said, "Hey, write me a 500-word blog on this," and
Yeah.
that type of content is clearly obvious, right?
Yeah.
So you still need to. That's where marketers still definitely need to spend the time and learn how to do and use the actual tool,
Yeah.
right? And you
Great
can end up
point.
creating some really great pieces of content really, 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 really quickly without having to outsource, without having. And it's a tool that's going to amplify content creation over time.
Yeah.
And as we see, as we start to see both video, I think it was Sora, and then Google just launched their what's it called? It's like their notes thing,
Mhm.
but you can basically turn a document into a podcast more or less, and it summarizes it for you in a podcast. And it's a pretty cool tool.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff what's coming out right now, and you're so right though. Like you have to be if you're not utilizing ChatGPT. Actually one thing that we found really valuable over here at in our organization has been Claude. Claude has been a little bit. I don't know if you've heard of Claude, but I find it a little bit better at writing than ChatGPT itself, right? Because you like you
Hmm.
said, you can tell when it's a ChatGPT written post or a ChatGPT
Yeah,
written article. It's pretty obvious, right? But it's about the prompting. It's about learning how to prompt and learning how to also have creating even specific AI plugins or GPTs that you can actually train, right? That are
yeah,
trainable models, right? That you can train
yes.
on your own style, that you can train on your own voice, and
You can
then
even train it. You can train it in your own, like with the institutional knowledge, right? So if it's trained on your
exactly.
institutional knowledge right now, and it's trained on your voice, it's trained on your tone, right? And now you're getting a very solid piece of content, but you still have to do the right prompting. You still have to provide enough context, but
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Exactly. It can get you at this point, I feel like it can get you like 80 to 85% of the way there, right? And that's the beautiful thing about it. So it's like if you're able to leverage that and then obviously
yeah,
be able to clean it up, yourself, put your own twist on it at the end. I think that's the real power. And at some point, probably within the next like year or two, it'll probably get you 100% of the way there, right? Where you
yeah,
don't
oh
need.
yeah. I imagine as the NLP continues to advance and the large language models get better and better and they start adding more and more tokens to them, right? I think that we're just going to watch it get better and better and smarter and smarter.
Yeah, it's crazy. And one of those things that I always tell people, it's like the people who are going to capitalize and the people who are going to really excel during this AI revolution that we're seeing are the people who are on the forefront that are using these tools, knowing how they work, knowing how to implement them in organizations like you guys are doing. We have something that we're trying to build right now that's around AI like itself, and so it's you have to be trying to take advantage of what we're
Yep,
seeing in this.
yep,
It's one of the most revolutionary forms of technology that we've probably seen since the start of the internet, right? So it's
Yeah, and that's what I equate this to, right? And then also I think there, talking about trends and kind of the news and kind of jumping back to that piece, you brought it up. With the everything going on in the news right now. So we had two major things with AI happen very, very recently.
Mhm.
So the new administration came out and said they were going to drop 500 billion dollars into AI infrastructure, and then
Yeah.
like 3 days later, China dropped DeepSeek. So now we have a global competition for the AI race. I think we're going to see something that's going to be fairly similar to what happened with like the moon, right? Shooting for the moon, and in our space race with Russia. I think we're getting ready to see an AI race with China,
Interesting.
and I think it's going to create a lot of buzz, and I think AI is going to be in the news quite often here moving forward. So,
Yeah, I mean, it already is, and it's like if you're like that's it's one of those things, right? You have to be positioned, and I think that the companies that fail to adopt it are going to be left behind. This is one of those
agreed.
technologies that you have to adopt, right? It's like it's like
Yep.
when the internet comes out, like if you're not, you know, nowadays everyone has a website, right? Back in, 20 years ago, before people even had websites, it was never heard of. But now if you're a company and you're trying to start a business without a website, it's like what are you doing? You gotta have something up there, to be able to showcase what you guys do. And
Yep.
so I think that's gonna be like the next thing is like, oh, you guys aren't using AI. Like that's not what you're using. Like, you're living in the old times, right? And so
Yep.
that's what we're seeing, the trend that's happening. And so I couldn't agree more with that.
So
Um,
I'm expecting, probably if companies really don't start taking AI seriously in the next 3 to 5 years, you got to look all these startups that are they're all going to take advantage of AI, and
yeah,
what they're going to be able to do is move so much faster than some of the already pre-established companies that are out there. They're going to start playing catch up really quick.
yeah, yeah,
And if they don't, if some of these more established companies really don't start the AI transformation, they're going to be overtaken by startups eventually,
definitely.
because there is a lot of investment going on in AI right now, like a
100%.
lot. So
100%. Yeah, yeah. And well, I did want to segue just a little bit, Chris, just as we end here in terms of, so we get a lot of founders and CEOs that tune in, to the show, right? That are looking to either scale their business or looking to maybe start a company. But what's been, one of those things that's helped you, in your pursuit of obviously, your entrepreneurial journey, transitioning from, working for corporate, right? And then to going into starting your own business and wanting to blaze that path. What's been that, one or two things that maybe you can give to advice to people that are looking to start?
in terms of getting started, one, I've always been kind of entrepreneurial. So in the military, I was that guy that they would send to go do new things. Like I would go build whatever the new thing was, and then somebody would come and replace me, and then carry it on. And I was kind of always that first guy to go. So that's always been a part of like my mentality. I didn't realize that until I really did some kind of deep thought a little while, about a year ago, of like, oh wow, I guess I really have been an entrepreneur for a long time. It's just,
Mhm.
in a military sense.
Yeah.
But outside of that, the one thing that helped me and is, I did go, I've got about 7 years of total business experience now, in, private sector out of the military business experience. But what I was really kind of lacking was the fundamental knowledge of how big money moved, and how in just the overall acumen and the things that a CEO needs to be looking at. And the approach that I took, and it worked for me, is I went to Columbia Business School's executive education.
Mhm.
So I got a certificate of business excellence in private equity and venture capital. So I know how money moves. I also know how to target them for what they want to see.
Yeah.
Right. So it's helped kind of navigate those waters. And then the CEO program, I'm in the process of finishing that up right now. I just completed the core. But what that did was open up a network of people that have been amazing. And what I would encourage everybody to do, I'm not saying go spend $30,000 on a Columbia certification, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, utilize the free tools that you have, utilize LinkedIn, and really establish that network and go ask hard questions to people.
Yeah.
right? Go ask them questions that you don't know. And you'll be, some people are not going to respond to you, but you'd be surprised. A lot of people will.
Yeah.
And just really utilizing and building a network, because that's the one thing I found that is truly led to kind of where we're at today, is that network establishment,
Definitely.
and being able to bring in the right talent and building the right team. So it's all kind of played together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I love that, and I think that's great advice, right? Getting out there, getting your network started, and being able to take advantage of what you have access to, right? Because there's so much information that you have access to your at your fingertips here that you can. A lot of my initial start into the entrepreneur journey was me seeking out information and then wanting to just learn, and then obviously at some point I think having a mentor, going to school, or seeking that
Oh
higher
yeah,
excellence
so I have so on top of that, I have a success coach that Columbia gave me, and then I also have two business mentors. And one of them's a former Procter and Gamble executive, and
yeah.
then and the other one is my advisory board member. And having those guys has been a blessing. Let me put it that way.
Yeah,
To help kind of keep me on track and keep me guided.
it's almost necessary. It's like when you think about like a fighter, or you think about some form of martial arts person
Yeah.
that competes at a high level. Like every single one of them has a coach, right? They all
Yep.
have these coaches that help them develop their skills, that help them develop who they are. And so it's one of those things that I think it's almost a prerequisite if you're trying to build a business. You got to find someone that has done it before, or someone that's in where you want to be. It doesn't even have to be like super ahead of you, but like even like 5 steps ahead of you or 3 steps ahead of you, and trying to get access to the information that they have, so you don't have to go through all the struggles that maybe they went.
Yeah, and it's a business you can't do alone. This is a conversation I had with my success coach at Columbia. She was talking, and I was like, I think the one biggest thing that I figured out is you can't do this alone,
Yeah,
right? It takes more than a tribe to build a business. It takes a full blown, it takes a full blown network to do it.
yeah,
And you just never know when that network is going to provide. And it just, for me, it's just kept providing. So,
yeah,
and I've been very fortunate and been very lucky to get everything that's kind of been shaped and formulated, but it hasn't been without a lot of trial and error, without
that's
a lot of
everything.
heartbreak, and a lot of like, oh man, what are we doing? Right. So
I it's
the
funny,
one
Chris. I talk to entrepreneurs almost every single day, and I don't think I've met one that hasn't told me that there isn't a lot of trial error, that there isn't a period of the business where you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do here. Like I'm just, what am I doing? Like everyone, I feel like if you're an entrepreneur, you've gone through that at some point or another, or you're going through it right now. Like there's
Yep.
always that you know, I talked about it with one of my clients, and they said if you're not struggling to pay payroll, or if you're not like worrying, that means that you're not
You're
putting
not
your
entrepreneuring.
you're not putting yourself out there. You're not trying to grow. You're
Yep.
not trying to do the things. So I think it's part of the business, right? It's part of the game, and the game is fun too, right? When you start to play it, it almost becomes addicting to where you're like, I don't ever want
Oh,
to stop
it's
playing.
very addicting. Now, especially now that we're kind of on now that we're definitely on the traction side of things,
Yeah,
it feels a lot better.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah.
think the one other piece of advice that I would give an entrepreneur is to really truly learn about the word humility. Um, and learning and going back to, you don't have to do this by yourself, and it does
Yeah.
take the team. So humble yourself and surround yourself with smart people.
Yes.
Right. You
Yeah.
you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. You have to be the best decision maker in the room with the best advice.
Couldn't agree more, man. I think that's actually probably the perfect note to go ahead and end this on, my friend. Chris, if people are watching this, they say, man, I want to reach out to you. I want to get to hear a little bit more about what you guys are doing over at Noble Team. What are the best ways to go ahead and find you guys?
LinkedIn right now, our website is because of the rebrand. Our website's under construction. And it'll be the new website should be released in the next 2 weeks.
Perfect.
But yeah, so LinkedIn for now. We have a LinkedIn page, or just reach out directly to me on LinkedIn. Chris Pollitzer, fairly easy to find, and I'm fairly Googleable. So
Beautiful.
yeah,
Beautiful. Well, I'll
that's how you
include
find
both
me.
of those in the description. I'll include your LinkedIn in the description for people to check out. If you did, first of all, thank you, Chris, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if you guys did make it all the way to the end, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And go check out Chris and the team. We hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, Chris.
All right, thanks, Alessandro. It's been a pleasure.